Alright, what we got here, this is the left hand side, driver's side, door jamb. It's going to be a little bit, I don't know, wouldn't say difficult, but this is what it looks like before we start. I've got a few ideas what we're going to do, so we'll go from there and see what happens, and then we'll see how it turns out, eh? Now I've just cut that small piece out in here, once there it is there. Now what I'm doing, I'm leaving this radius here. We know that it ends here where that last part was, across there, right? But this is a fairly important piece down across here, because this is the door where the door jamb goes, or door slam, and we don't want to change this in any way. So I'm going to keep that radius turn there. There's a couple little pinholes in there I'll fix up, but I haven't got the doors with me. The owner's still got the doors, so we haven't got to the stage where we're going to swing the doors on it yet. So what I'll do, I might work on this other bit here as well, but I'll give it a clean out there. My favourite line, we'll use the rust inhibitor, rust converter, give it all a bit of a clean up and a bit of a prime inside there as well. For some reason this side of the car rusted, the other side didn't. So it might have had a little bit of a, I don't know, leak somewhere. So you can see back inside there's a little drain hole that goes down into the rockers. But yeah, we're moving on with it. Alright, we have patch number 1 made. So yeah, just take the place of my other little holy friend there. So yeah, patch number 1 done. What I'm going to do, I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to stitch that in place just yet, because what I'm doing is I'm going to work on this radius here, where I might need to put something behind that when I weld that in place. Same with the ones that are up the side here. So I'll leave it and I'll stitch it together towards the end. Now I still haven't spot welded this number 1 plate in place yet, but I actually, where I cut with the grinder across here, being the blade was so large, I actually cut it through there. So I did weld that little bit of a gap through there and I ground it. So like I was saying earlier, maintaining the same radius down through here. And now this part here I've just finished making now. It's fitting okay, but then we're going to have to do the rest of the across here, get rid of this part, cut this out here. I'm still maintaining this curve here. Like I was saying with the door, it's fairly important that we keep that right. If anything, we keep it down in size. When I say down in size, I mean a little bit less than metal finished, because you can always put a skim of Bondo or bog over the top of it, where, you know, if you've got it right up on the metal, mate, you have to bound that metal down when you go to fit the doors, swing the doors, set the doors. So we'll keep moving from here. But yeah, that's what I've done. I've also managed to cut this out here, because I want to get in here and clean this all up and rust convert all this stuff here, because it's a bit rusty and the sandblast never got in there. So yeah, so keep moving with it. Just tacking the 3rd patch in place here with 2 spots to patch 2. Of course this one's going to have to be cut off back into that point there, and then what I'll do, I'll fold a piece up, cut this piece out of here, and then back into there, that part. So yeah. Just trimmed it up so it looks in line. And what I've got to do then is cut a line across here with the and then that piece will bend back to run that flush, because once again it's the door jamb area, and all the closing surfaces are probably very important in this case, and the gaps. But I'll make another piece next, across here, and back into here. And this piece will be 1 piece. But I've still got a bit of fixing up in behind to do yet. We're going to do some rust converter. Now, seeing that inside here is rusted, which is this part here we're talking about, there's a rather hole, there's a hole there, there's a round hole. That's still required for the wiring loom to go through, this one here. So what I've done, I've cut that back up, put some solid steel up in here. So if you have a look back inside there, you'll see this here, I've cut it. And I've made a piece to go in, so what I'll do, I'll remove that piece. I'll remove it out of the way, and I'll show you what I've made for it. I've made a little bit of patchwork to go like that. I've drilled out the spot welds here, and spot welds and spot welds, because ideally what there was one sheet was in there and it went back that way on an angle, and then there's one that comes forward in an L shape to touch this part here. So what you've done now is I've made a piece. It sits in like that. And then what I'll do, I'll cut the hole, that can go in place there. Now at the bottom here is where I just took out all the seam sealer. There was some seam sealer along the edge here. That piece I've already made, of course, that piece I've made there. Once that's in place with that hole in it, then I'll start moving forward and get the rest of it. Just sitting the pieces in place, and then like I was saying, got to build that piece that goes back this way at 9 degrees, and then it's got to fold back under this lip here where these spot welds were. There was 3 layers. The outer, the second layer in was the one that came to the front here, and then that last one was the one that went across. Now as you can see, I've drilled the hole at the back there so that the cables will go through. I've left a gap at the bottom where that was actually seam sealed across here where it went across, so it wasn't actually directly welded into the rocker panel. And then once I've finished that, I'll move along into this little patch along here. But once again, I can still get in here now, plus I can get in from the other side to do the rust converter and then coat it with a good coat of galv coating. Yeah, so now I've got to put some more pieces together. Anyway, you get the idea. Started welding the patches in now, and I've sort of given it a bit of a grind. I've got to go back and fill a few holes here. Let it cool down a bit, keep going. Doing alright actually. Good old piece of nice thick piece of copper is in behind there when I'm welding up. Actually it's still quite warm, so it's good heat sink, plus when you're welding in little thin parts. There's that folded piece I was talking about that goes in behind here, and then there's that other piece that goes in behind this up through and above the rocker panel there, which is up in, you know, through that gap there. That'll go in there after, but yeah. And then we'll put this piece back in. Number 1 piece will go back in there, in that spot there. Yeah, so that's it really. So keeping this line straight, of course. This is the door here, you got to keep that straight. So most importantly, when I swing the doors, we'll see. Hopefully anything will be a little bit negative, that we can give a bit of a wipe of bomb door or a bit of putty, bog, whatever you want to call it. And then all this will be all ground nice and neat and tidy again. Same radius, that piece remained, so I gave me the same radius to that door there. This is it after we've spot welded it, seam welded it. What I found was when I was, I had the patches up to about here somewhere, I ended up putting in more plates up here. It wasn't actually cooperating when it come to welding. It appeared to be thin, but even though it seemed to be thick, so whether it was the sandblaster so hard from the inside or not, it was thin. Kept blowing holes, even low amps on the MIG, so cut more up again, same thing again. I grew up to about here somewhere. Like I said, it should all be a bit lower now, that way that you can put a skim of bog over it when we do the door jambs. This part here is a part of that folded part which goes onto here. There's a couple of spot welds we drilled out. I've had a tech screw in there because what we've got is a plate that goes in behind it, which is that one there, which has got the hole for the cable gland to go through. Before I go any further now, I'm going to have to go through and give it some rust converter. In here there was a seam sealer line for seam sealer, so I don't know, this was left open like that. But yeah, what I'm going to do now is I'll rust convert in through my little side hole I got here, which had rust holes through it. I'll get in there, clean it all up, rust convert it, give it a prime before I go ahead and put this secondary piece back in. I've had it texture in place, so I know it fits quite well inside the side compartment there. Just gave it all a coat of the old rust converter. You get in there with a long brush, you can get in all the spots, you know, you can get in the most of the areas. Yeah, just everyday ordinary rust converter inside the panel there. Just some CSA branded stuff. So that's a nice job of it. Got all those little holes at the back there to do now. I've got some inner and outer guards for it to chop up if need be. Yeah, the old rust converter. Smells like bloody battery acid, that stuff. Yeah, what I'll do, I'll give that a bit of a prime, I think. That outside there, give that a bit of a prime. And then I'll prime all that other stuff with the rust converter on it when it's dry. Now this is the seat mount from the Mustang. Now what I've done, I've straightened out all the flat edges when we drilled all the spot welds out across here, across the side. You know, it was actually spot weld to the actual transmission tunnel. Once again, using the old rust converter. Smells like battery acid stuff anyway, so we're going to give it a generous coat, like we did with the other side. And once we get it rust converted, then what we're going to do, give it a coat of black, because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, when the seat's back in, the seat mount here is back in, we're not going to be able to paint underneath this seat, so we'll give it a coat. This car's going to be kept nice, so then we'll spray it all black like I did the other side, and also the part that it goes into. So that's just the seat mount, as you imagine. We're just talking about doing the seat mount on the inside of the floor pan. There was a few cracks I'd marked earlier here. There was a crack through here. This one wouldn't weld up, so I actually I'm cutting a little piece to put in there, that one. So these ones up here, they welded up pretty good. So what I'll do on the inner side, I'll run another bead of weld on that again, that way I make it double strong. Same with this again here, and yeah. Once again, that floor pan was sitting up in a few places, but when it came to the panel beating downwards, it did form a few cracks. So with the cracks being too thin, in this case here, just cut it out, put a plate in it, you know, it's easy. Much easier, job done at the end. Now this is the cracks in the floor pan we did earlier. We tried to weld them up. We ended up putting some plates in there, I think. So there's a plate down there, there's a plate up in here. They wouldn't weld up. These cracks seem to weld okay here. And of course, like I said before, just weld on both sides, inner and outer as well. Just on the inner of these. Now I'm not going to worry about grinding them down and leave it. This is under the seat panel I was talking about earlier, which is the one we just did the rust converter on. Now what I'm going to do now, I've ground all around the edges here. I've given that a bit of a grind as well, because that's where it's going to sit back, and then we'll plug weld it back to that. Meanwhile, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rust convert all this, and then I'll paint it black, like I was saying, paint it black on this, and then also the underside of the old panel, which is the one that's outside here in the sun, drying out now. So when that's dry, then I'll give that a coat of black paint, and that'll make it all nice and protected for when we go to further paint body work from there. Now this is the left-hand side of the Mustang floor pan job we did. Remember, we welded up a few cracks in here. We put a few plates in. There was a couple of plates through here as well. What I did was I rust converted it and painted it black. And the same with under the seat here. What I'm going to do now, because you won't be able to paint that afterwards, of course. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just grind this off here, grind this off across here where it originally went, where the spot holes were, and we'll make new ones here where it goes into the new part of the floor pan came down to connect. And when I grind it, I'll grind it across here where it was welded in as well, and then I'll weld that back in, and then I'll re-prime over it, a bit like the other side there. So yeah. The old seat mount, riser mount went in quite well. As you can see, the little pinholes through the bottom is where the spot hole from the spot welder remover took it out. But on this side here we had to realign it properly, keep it all square, back to the holes. You can look through the floor where you come up from underneath to bolt the seats to. Just to see where I've just ground away so we can get some welding done here and here. Under each of these holes I've ground as well. So now we'll just plug welder back in place. Just cleaning up under the floor pan too, where I welded in all those spots, plug welds to hold that seat in, I was showing earlier. And then on the inside, gave it a coat of primer as well, so that's all in now, nice and solid. Yeah, so now that seat mount's done for driver's side now, so yeah, getting there. With the plate removed, it doesn't look much better. Still got a few holes up here to do, so yeah, we'll wait and see. Should be okay. Yeah. Alright, you can see where the plate was. Alright, what we've got here, this is the inner guard, which is out of the car. I've actually just cut it out, by the way. This is what come out of here. This is rubbish, of course. Okay, this has come out of here. That's where I took that plate off yesterday. What I've done, I've cut straight along the edge to that joint, and then I'll grind it up. Now what they've done previously, you can see the little tech screw holes here where they've screwed it together. This whole panel on the side here has been taken out. Through across about here somewhere. But that inner guard was buggered, rusted, so it'll go in. What I'll do, clean up all through here, take this out here, put it in one piece, grind this lip off of here so these can go back together, and then all I'll do is I'll drill and then plug weld as best I can up in the guard here from the inner. Yeah, but there you can see that joint across here in the shadow now. See the joint across here? This is where they actually cut that out of guard. See, there's a bit of MIG wire hanging through here. So yeah, once again, you can see where it goes right through up the end there. Yeah, inner guard. So then we'll have that. We've got that now in order, so that'll be done. We'll do it correctly.